to pick things or choose battles that people care about. And people care about being able to go to a restaurant and get a meal without having to pay a security fee, so that restaurant can hire a security guard, so that if there's a drive-by shooting, maybe not everyone who's sitting in the front of the restaurant will get killed. That's something people care about. That's something people can sink their teeth into and say, yeah, I see how this would affect me on a day-to-day basis. I see how this would improve my life. Jasmine Crockett and the rest of these Texas Democrats hopping on a private plane to go whine with J.B. Pritzker about how unfair gerrymandering is in Texas. Pretty rich coming from people who are now sitting pretty in Illinois, of all places. That is not the move. I don't care what anyone says. When we come back, we've got more great guests for you. We also have an unbelievable rant from Charlie Kirk. He was on Squawk Box, and he really laid out for the audience there why Americans have lost faith in our leaders and the people in our media. The ruling class is how he describes it. He does a great job of it. So we'll talk about that. My name is Grace Curley. I'm filling in for Stacey Washington, and we have so much more to get to when we return.
Hi, Kelton.
Hey, I'm Linda, a business owner like you. My banking is all about my financial freedom. I don't want liens on all my assets when getting the business loans I need. Plus, I want to be treated like a professional, not a potential criminal. My business coach recommended Delta Capital Group. I went to deltacap.com and got the money I needed. A $200K line of credit in under 24 hours. No collateral. It was a breath of fresh air. Delta Capital Group is the national leader providing lines of credit and term loans for businesses just like yours. Same-day approval, no collateral, any credit score. Rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau. Over half of their business comes from referrals and happy repeat customers. Why? Delta Capital gets business done. Smart business owners don't wait for money. I got my financial freedom through Delta. Delta Capital, fighting fast. Your bank, stuck in the past. Get your money at deltacap.com. That's deltacap.com. Delta Capital Group, funding your future fast.
Oh boy, this is embarrassing. I'm here at the Four Patriots Warehouse, and we are bursting at the seams with food. Our best-selling 4-week survival food kit sold like hotcakes last year. Because with everything going on in the world, smart folks stocked up fast. So we told our purchasing guy, order more food. And holy cow, he really delivered. But due to supply chain delays, everything showed up at once. Now we've got pallets of food stacked to the ceiling. We're out of room. So to clear space, we're doing something we've never done before. 4-week survival food kit, get a second one absolutely free. This food lasts 25 years, tastes great, and is hand-packed in the USA. Double your emergency food supply at no extra cost. Plus, seniors and veterans get free shipping. Go to 4patriots.com right now. Remember, when disaster strikes, supermarket shelves empty fast. Don't let your family go hungry. 4patriots.com before the steal disappears forever.
Limited government, economic opportunity.
We are.
Sirius XM Patriot.
Channel 125.
Conservative principles live here.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com on 8 years in Washington. Defense expert Benjamin Jensen at the Center for Strategic and International Studies says having the Trump-Putin meeting about Ukraine at the military base in Alaska is a good call.
As weird as it seems to have the Russian president meet the U.S. president on a major military base in Alaska, it makes sense for both sides. The last thing Putin and his propaganda, corrupt inner circle want is pictures of Americans protesting Putin being there at a public setting. And if you had it in a more traditional setting, people could get close. No one's getting into the military base who doesn't have an ID and isn't supposed to be there. And frankly, that means they can really contain the space.
The meeting is scheduled to take place Friday at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson in Anchorage, according to a White House official who spoke on condition of anonymity. A judge has struck down President Trump's religious exemption to birth control coverage, White House correspondent Greg Clugston reports.
During his first term, the president put in place rules that exempt employers with religious or moral objections from having to provide insurance coverage for birth control. But a federal judge in Philadelphia said the 2018 rules were not justified, rejecting the Trump administration's claims that they were necessary to protect the rights of religious employers. Little Sisters of the
Hey, Olivier.
The Catholic Order of Nuns that intervened in the case to defend the rules will appeal the ruling. Greg Clugston, Washington.
A Texas school bus carrying more than 40 students rolled over after veering off a rural road on the first day of class, injuring multiple students. At least 3 people sustained severe or even life-threatening injuries. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 463 points, the NASDAQ rose 31. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
Hi, my name's Neil. I have some advice for you if you've been trying to break free from credit card debt. You can start by doing what I did. Get your bills together and call Trinity Debt Management. Trinity is dedicated to helping people like me become debt-free. When I called, my first experience was a feeling of relief. My counselor was kind, and best of all, she didn't judge me. In just a few minutes, she helped me figure out a plan that consolidated all my bills into one. This substantially reduced my high interest rates and put me on the road to success. In the end, I saved thousands in interest, and today my credit card debt is a thing of the past.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-990-6976.
My name is Neil. Take it from someone who's been there. Call Trinity and become debt-free for keeps.
1-800-990-6976.
A conservative political organizer says Republicans should have no qualms about redistricting in Texas and elsewhere to add new congressional seats.
So Republicans even have even a few doubts about this, I think it's insane.
Ned Ryan with American Majority says there's a long history of the parties in power redrawing election maps.
Democrats have done this all the time. I think New York did it in a random in-between census time a few years ago.
And Ryan has a message for Republicans. He says we're given a mandate with the 2024 re-election of Donald Trump.
You were given political power for a reason. You should use it.
Biden report.
9 people have pleaded not guilty to felony charges brought forth in a rural Texas county by Republican Attorney General Ken Paxton as part of a widening elections investigation. Those indicted include a former mayor and a city council member. News and analysis at townhall.com. From Washington, I'm Keith Peters.
Christian, mother, wife, Air Force veteran, gun rights advocate.
This is Stacey on the Right. Here's your host, Stacey Washington.
Welcome back, Patriots. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight to Stacey on the Right. My name is Grace Curley. I am honored to be in this seat filling in for Stacey, who does such a wonderful job as she is in Israel this week. And there's tons of news to get to. We've tackled a lot of the sound, at least, from the talking heads regarding the D.C. crime takeover and the president's attempt to make the nation's capital safer. If you're sitting here wondering why is that a bad thing, well, they don't really know. They just know that Trump's trying to do it, and therefore, ipso facto, it has to be a bad thing. Joining me now to discuss this, and I'm thrilled to have him on, is Mike O'Neill. He's the Vice President of Legal Affairs for Landmark Legal Foundation. And Mike, I found out today you're not only a graduate of Villanova, but you also went to Catholic University for law school. My sister is a Villanova alum, and my brother is a Catholic University alum.
Oh, that's outstanding. That's great. A lot of connections there. What year did what year respective graduations for each one of them? Maybe they overlapped.
I think my brother was 2019 and my sister was 2020. She had kind of the rough go of it with COVID there. So yeah, but they're very.
Okay, I'm a Villanova in 2000 UA logger. So okay,
You
I'm
missed them by that much.
Missed it by several decades. Okay, there you go. Well, that's great. That's fantastic. Villanova. We're excited with Villanova, of course. Obviously, everybody knows because of basketball, but there's a better reason to know Villanova now these days. Of course, we have the Pope. So that's a badge of honor. I think that the first, not only do we have our first American Pope, but we also have a graduate of Villanova, an alumni of Villanova University Pope. And of course, CUA Law School in Washington, D.C. is a great place to go as well.
Yeah, I was laughing with my sister, Mike, because when the Coldplay scandal broke out with that couple here in Boston, where they got caught on the Jumbotron, I found out that the guy involved in that was a Providence College grad, and I'm a friar. And I said to my sister, I got a text from her friend who wrote to me and said, Villanova got the Pope and we got the Coldplay guy. And I said, this is not, I want to trade. I don't like this. But Mike, let's get down to business here. We're talking about the D.C. takeover, the federal takeover of D.C. Trump has decided to invoke the Home Rule Act. He's taking this action to restore some safety and some sanity back to a place that has completely lost it. And I want to know from your perspective what this looks like legally. I'm sure there's going to be challenges. There's going to be outcry. Give us your first of all, your reaction to this whole thing.
First, okay, so it's legal and constitutional. I mean, you always want to talk about the two levels, and it's legal because the Home Rule Act has a specific provision in it which grants the president the authority to do this. And if the president declares an emergency status, that there's a crime emergency in Washington, D.C., in the federal district, again, this is the federal district of Washington, D.C., he determines that there is a crime emergency, he can nationalize and federalize the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department. And so there's a provision within the D.C. Home Rule Act. Again, this is a law that was passed in 1973. Keep in mind, prior to that, it's kind of ebbed and flowed throughout the history of the nation's capital about whether Congress is controlling it, whether they've given some home rule. But in 73, they passed this Home Rule Act. Before that, right before that, Congress was asserting jurisdiction, was asserting control.
We'll be safe, Johnny. Thank you, brother.
Under our constitutional structure, it's a federal city under federal jurisdiction and federal control. The Home Rule Act permitted the establishment of a D.C. Council, D.C. Mayor's Office, D.C. Superior Courts, D.C. government, which functions. However, ultimately, Congress and the federal government retained ultimate jurisdiction and authority over how D.C. is run. So it was the power was made through the Home Rule Act in 1973, but ultimately Congress has the authority there.
Yeah, and one of the things, though, that you've been focused on, and I appreciate this from a legal perspective because I haven't seen it in a lot of other places, is yes, while it's Trump's decision to have this federal takeover, and I think it's completely called for based off what we're seeing, you're also calling out Congress and saying that this is one part, this is a multi-pronged operation here if it's going to be successful, and Congress is going to have to step up as well.
Yeah, exactly. Congress is going to have to step up as well. What's going to happen? I mean, there's a...
I'm actually going to do some door dashing.
I do think that the president can redesignate it, can try to re-up the emergency status.
Good order.
So, but the statute's clear. It provides for 30 days. I think there is a mechanism where he can extend that. But ultimately, look, Congress has the end say here. And D.C., what happened was Washington, D.C. passed some laws permitting juveniles to essentially escape accountability here, right? They're trying juvenile 16, 17-year-olds who commit violent crimes, aggravated assault, oftentimes not treated as adults or not, and that's a D.C. Council instituted that plan. Well, Congress can step in and override that. And Congress can do that. Congress can also ensure that there's no cash bail in Washington, D.C. I mean, the elimination of the no cash bail provisions within the D.C. Code. So Congress can do that, can take effective steps to make some systemic changes that will actually effectuate change in reducing the crime rate in Washington, D.C. So, yeah, Congress here is really the backstop with the end-all authority. So they're going to have a role to play going forward. In the
in the interim, of course, you have the Department of Justice and you have the executive branch doing what's necessary to restore order, right? And we've seen that crime has really run rampant. Washington D.C. kind of has an interesting story, right? In the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, it was led by a guy named Marion Barry was the mayor. I'm sure you've heard that name before. Marion Barry was mayor for life. Essentially, he was a corrupt crack addict, honestly, and he ran the city into the ground. Crime was endemic. It was known as the murder capital of the world during the crack wars, drug wars of the late 80s, early 90s. Prominent people came into power, into the mayoral, into local office. They managed to get that there was a federal oversight of how the money was going to be allocated throughout Washington, D.C., a budgetary process. So D.C. really improved in the late 90s and early 2000s into this great city. Really, crime really was decreased. It kind of followed the model of New York City, right? We had the broken windows theory. So it was a great place to live. It was a great place to visit. Relatively safe. I mean, all big cities are going to have their problems, but a fairly safe city. Well, what happened in the past 10 years is, of course, it's come around. You've had this mess. Post-COVID, you had a lot of leniency, the laws I was talking about, eliminating cash bail, allowing juveniles to run amok, and it's really descended in, tolerating homeless encampment, all of the woke stuff that you see, Grace. And so it's really gone downhill since then. So again, Donald Trump's coming into office and is invoking common sense and is utilizing the tools at his disposal to make D.C. a good city again.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Marion Barry, because one of his most famous quotes would be, and we're hearing different versions of this today, but if you take out the killings, Washington actually has a very, very low crime rate. That's kind of similar to the spin we're getting from the modern day politicians in D.C. today and really across the country who are all coming out in outrage against Donald Trump. Something you just hit on, Michael. I'm talking with Michael Neal, Vice President of Legal Affairs for Landmark Legal Foundation. Something you just hit on that I would love to have you expound on a little bit for the audience, because I catch this with myself. You hear no cash bail all the time. And people, a lot of pundits on TV, they'll talk about it. They'll talk about why it's bad. And they'll talk about how a lot of these radical politicians have, been on the forefront of trying to implement this. But how did it start? How has it spread out across the country? And what does it actually mean for these criminals?
Right. So if say, for example, you're picked up, you're arrested for a felony, a violent felony, ag assault or just assault, and you're brought to prison, you're brought to a holding cell, and you're brought in front of a judge within 24 hours. The criminal procedures specify that you have to have a hearing within a short amount of time after your apprehension. And at that hearing, you plead guilty, not guilty. And then if you're not obligated to post cash bail, and then you don't have to, if you can't post bail, if the judge says, I'm going to set your bail at $100,000, and you have to post a bond, and you have to actually show that you have resources to a skin in the game to ensure that you're going to remain in the jurisdiction, you're going to show up for your criminal trial and your criminal subsequent hearings. But if you're not obligated to post cash bail, and then traditionally, if you're not able to post bail, you're incarcerated. You're placed in jail pending your trial. Again, you're not in prison, you're in jail, which is the temporary holding provisions pending your trial. If you eliminate the cash bail provisions, that you don't have to post any kind of bail, even if a judge is going to set bail for you, and you don't have to, and you lack the ability to post that bail, you're able to avoid jail, so you can be released on your own recognizance within 24 hours. So say I'm arrested for ag assault, brought before a judge, plead not guilty, don't have to post any kind of cash bail, don't have any obligation to avoid incarceration, to be released on my own recognizance. So you can see these instances where individuals who are accused and apprehended of serious crimes can be released within a matter of a day or two after they're back on the streets again. And of course, recidivism is a plan. The people who commit crimes are the people who commit crimes, right? But how do you avoid that? How do you ensure that people who are committing the crimes aren't going to continue to commit those crimes? Take them off the streets, put them in jail pending trial. That's awesome. That in the past 5 years, that's really gone out the window in a lot of jurisdictions. And of course, you've seen the crime rates rise accordingly. Hope I did a good enough job explaining that. It's a little technical, but I hope that was understandable.
No, you did an awesome job. My only question would be, because I've heard people ask for this before, people are wondering if Trump can use an executive order, because he said that he wanted to end cash bail. I know it's determined by state law. So is this, again, an issue that goes to Congress where, Trump is looking at them to do their part?
Right, and that's a great question. I think when we're talking about whether that no cash bail was implemented by the D.C. Council, whether they were permitted to do that, or whether it was an act of Congress, and that's an open. I wish I knew the answer to that. But ultimately, look, Congress has the ultimate authority here. If they want to eliminate it, they can. I do think, though, he can incentivize it, though. You know, there's a lot of tools that the president and the federal government retains. Now, look, they can't federalize the police departments in New York City, or for example, or in other cities. But there's a lot of tools the federal government, the executive branch, has at its disposal to motivate, carrot and stick, to ensure that other cities, and Washington, D.C., for that matter, get their act together. Remember, the federal government has a lot of grants that they give in, law enforcement grants. So there's that. They also have incredible assets and resources in the terms of federal law enforcement. They can take crimes that a state prosecutor or a city prosecutor, or district attorney, or Commonwealth attorney might not be prosecuting, and see if there's a federal hook to that. So if you're going to have aggressive enforcement by federal law enforcement authorities, they can really lead from the front and try to tackle the crime in other cities, as well as D.C., in that manner. So the extent to which who would eliminate cash bail, I know in other states and other jurisdictions, it would be ultimately the state would have to reform that law. In Washington, D.C., I think ultimately the backstop would be Congress. If the D.C. Council could do anything, if they have any power under the Home Rule Act, then certainly they should exercise it as well.
Mike, I also have to ask, and you've made a great case for why Congress has to give authority to prosecutors to punish criminals, and how rampant the crime is in D.C. right now, despite the spin that we're hearing from politicians and from their parrots in the media. But you also mentioned a key word there, recidivism. And I think that that's an important part of this. And I'm curious because someone who's very, very passionate about prosecuting dangerous criminals is the current U.S. Attorney for D.C., Jeanine Pirro. You can feel it when she talks, how passionate she gets about getting dangerous people off of the streets. But the other thing that she talked about at the presser with Donald Trump, and then later at her own presser, I think it was yesterday, she's talking about how much of this crime is being committed by young people, young punks, she calls them. But you have kind of these gangs of young people who are stealing cars, beating people up, stealing things from stores. And when we talk about recidivism, when you're dealing with like a 15-year-old, are we looking at people who are going to most likely be in the system for the rest of their lives? Like, what are the rates here for these young teenagers? If you're going in for a carjacking when you're 16 years old, what does the rest of life look like oftentimes?
Not good. Not good. I mean, if you've already entered into the life of crime at 15, 16 years old, imagine if you're committing a carjacking. If you've already graduated up to carjacking at 15 or 16, that's a serious offense. I don't think the future looks good for you. That's certainly true. I mean, you'll most likely wind up in prison or dead. I mean, so it's terrible. So that's the point, is getting a hold of this. You can't tolerating this is actually doing a disservice to these individuals. If you're allowing individuals, again, this is part of the problem. There's actually a clip floating around of Biden's former press secretary, John Pierre, KJP, talking about how Washington, D.C. has now decriminalized a lot of actions for juveniles, and they're bragging about it. And you're saying, oh my gosh, you are hurting people by allowing this sort of thing. You're not only hurting the victims, but you're hurting the perpetrators in these instances as well. And I think you really hit on it, Grace, is if you're a kid and you're not getting any kind of support, and you're not getting any kind of, hey, this is not the right thing to do. And on the other side, you're actually getting society telling you, hey, this is okay. Right? What are we saying? If you commit a carjacking and you're 16 years old and you go out and do it, and then you're back released, walking the streets again 24 hours later, even if you're apprehended for doing it, what is society telling you? Well, I guess society doesn't care that you're doing something wrong. Nobody's told you anything's wrong. The message you're getting is it's okay. So you're going to go out and commit more crime. You're probably going to graduate to worse crimes as well. So not only are you hurting the victims and the city at large, but you're also hitting the individuals by giving them this message, these kids who have been completely raised in chaos, the message that, hey, society is going to tolerate this. It's okay. Sometimes we all need somebody to tell us, hey, no, that's bad. Don't do that. I mean, we all need that, right?
Absolutely. I think everybody needs to be told no. And, the sooner you're told that, the better off you're going to be. Mike O'Neill, it has been awesome having you on. We've covered so many different topics. He's the Vice President of Legal Affairs for Landmark Legal Foundation at Landmark Legal on X. So you can follow them. Thank you very much, sir. V's up. Go Villanova. Happy for you. Jealous you got the Pope, but that's okay. We'll be right back. We'll take your calls on all of this. And I want to hear from you. I want to get your thoughts. If you're listening to Stacy on the right, I'm Grace Curley. I want to get your thoughts on this chaos in DC, the attempt to minimize it by the left. And also, I want to get in a little bit to the homeless crisis, because the homelessness issue, because Caroline Leavitt, the fabulous press secretary for Donald Trump, she was asked, what are the options here? You're clearing out all these encampments in DC. What are the options for the homeless people? And she said they can either go to treatment, they can accept help for whatever mental issue or drug issue they're dealing with, or they can go to jail. And I think this is a topic that affects a lot of people in a lot of different cities around the country, but is especially bad in DC. Those are the two options the Trump administration is laying out for now. What do you make of that? The number, again, if you want to call in, if you want to weigh in, is 866-957-2874. Like I said, I also have a great sound cut from Charlie Kirk. It's a long sound cut, and I have a reputation for not being able to listen to anything beyond 30 seconds. But in this case, I think I'm going to really try, for your sake, to sit back and shut up and let someone else do the talking. So we'll play that cut for you when we come back. This is Stacy on the right. I'm Grace Curley. Don't go anywhere.
Conservative voices, built on freedom, powered by you. As a truck driver in the country, I can tell you, yes, the fuel prices are considerably lower now under Trump than they were under Biden. Secure borders, a sound fiscal policy, and fair and verifiable elections. Join the conversation. The unions will never let anybody else work unless the unions get their piece of the pie and protecting the wage.
Your voice is heard here. Sirius XM Patriot, Channel 125.
When you're a business owner, every second of your time is incredibly valuable, so don't waste your energy and risk losing money dealing with time-sucking payroll issues, office politics, and HR infractions. Focus on what matters most, running your business, with help from Bambi. Bambi gives you access to your very own dedicated HR manager at a fraction of what it costs to employ someone full-time. Bambi costs just $29 a month, whether you have 10, 75, or even 100 employees. Forget about onboarding new employees and terminating underperforming ones. With Bambi, your dedicated HR team will handle all of that for you. Your dedicated HR manager is always available by phone, text, or online. No downtime, no excuses, no BS, just dedicated HR support whenever you need it. Right now, get 1 month of Bambi for just $1. Go to Bambi.com, type Stacy into radio to schedule your first call with an HR manager right now. That's 1 month of Bambi for just $1 at BAMBEE.com, Stacy Radio.
Do you really own your wealth, or are you just borrowing it from Wall Street and big banks? I'm Colin Plume, CEO of Noble Gold Investments, and I believe we're entering in a new economic stage, the asset era. In a world where everything is borrowed, rented, or leveraged, owning real assets has never mattered more. The simplest way to hold your wealth in the physical form, gold and silver. We offer control, stability, and something most investments can't, true ownership. At Noble Gold, we help investors move from paper wealth into solid physical assets like gold and silver. Whether you're protecting your retirement or making your first investment, we'll guide you every step of the way. NobleGoldInvestments.com to get your free wealth protection kit. NobleGoldInvestments.com, because paper wealth can vanish or be inflated away, but real assets, they last, they protect. And in the asset era, ownership is everything. NobleGoldInvestments.com. Investing in precious metals, including gold, involves risk. Consult with your tax attorney or financial professional before making an investment decision.
Hey, Daddy Gang, this is Alex Cooper. The SiriusXM app is your home for all things Unwell. Exclusive channels from me and my friends. Unwell Music. Latest episodes of your favorite podcasts. Amy Schumer, Monica Lewinsky, Nicole Richie and Paris Winnie Harlow, welcome. Hello, Cardi. And more live, unfiltered conversations for the girls. We're gonna believe this. Who was it? Why? Just search Unwell in the SiriusXM app.
866-957-2874.
You are listening to Stacey on the Right on Sirius XM Nation 125.
I agree with you, Mika. They're falling into the trap of defending what's indefensible.
It's a trap. It's a trap.
It's a trap. All you have to do to not fall into this trap is not be dumb, but they can't do it. Don't be insane for 45 seconds of your life. And yet the left can't do it. And this also comes to the news. Now, obviously, there's a lot of focus on these crimes that are happening in D.C., the carjackings. Trump referenced a former Trump administration official who was murdered in D.C. while he was waiting for his wife. And so there's plenty of stories here, horror stories, that could fill up the 3 hours of this show. But also at the same time, Tom Homan, the border czar, is making it clear that the sanctuary city status in the nation's capital is not going to stand with Donald Trump in office. Take a listen to Tom Homan on Fox News. This is cut 2.
I think D.C. under federal control is not to be sanctuary city. We're working with the police hand in hand. We encounter a criminal illegal alien that we turned over to us. And that's the way it should be. I mean, I'm not saying every illegal alien in D.C. is a criminal, but many are. So these are people who are going to focus. Illegal alien criminal safety threat in D.C. is not going to be protected. There's no sanctuary for these people in the city of D.C.
Yeah, and really that term, sanctuary city, I know it's used by politicians like the mayor here in Boston, Mayor Wu, to refer to sheltering illegal aliens, whether that means giving them free clothes, free food delivery, free laundry, free shelter, and really just acting as a shelter, an escape, a protection from law enforcement for being illegal aliens. But in a lot of ways, these cities have become sanctuaries for all criminals, whether it be an illegal alien gangbanger or whether it be a 15-year-old carjacker in D.C. And Janine Pirro talks about how these young people, especially, they don't get the kind of punishment, the kind of lesson that they need in order to turn their lives around. They get yoga and ice cream socials. That's not going to cut it. And so this idea of a sanctuary city has kind of gone beyond just someone's immigration status. It's also just become, hey, if you're someone who wants to commit crimes, if you're someone who wants to hurt people, you can do it here without any repercussions. You can do it here without any accountability. We will protect you. We will have no cash bail. We will make sure you get out before lunch and that you can do this again and again and again. And I think that that is what people are really, really sick of in this country. And I always talk about the left's ability to pick the worst heroes. I have to give you this quick example before I play the sound from Charlie Kirk. This is pretty amazing. So Ron DeSantis, according to the Daily Beast, is under fire for turning against his fellow service members and letting executioners murder 5 veterans this year alone. Now, I would say that this headline is misleading, but that would be misleading because that would not do it justice. That would not fully encompass just how dishonest this headline is. They are arguing at the Daily Beast that the governor of Florida is betraying his fellow service members because 5 veterans have been executed on death row. They've earned the death penalty and they've received the death penalty. Here's what the Daily Beast did not tell you, and this is courtesy of Community Notes. The Daily Beast, in this article, defends Bobby Joe Long, executed in 2019, but omits why. Long was a serial killer who raped and murdered at least 10 women in Tampa Bay in 1984. He confessed and was convicted of 8 homicides plus additional rapes and abductions. So Bobby Joe Long is the veteran who Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, turned his back on. Again, it's, we lift up the criminals. We sympathize with the criminals. We try to victimize the criminals. And the actual victims, we don't shed a tear for. And when I say we, I'm really referring to the left here. So I'm not trying to lump all the listeners here on Stacey on the Right into that group. But you understand what I'm saying. It's like, where is the sympathy for the Lake and Rileys of the world, the people who are just going about their day trying to pursue their own happiness, maybe go for a jog, maybe take their dog out for a walk, maybe drop their kids off at school, maybe go visit their child in New York City who's working there. Where's the sympathy for those people who are gunned down in cold blood or raped or, beaten? Is there any sympathy, or does the Daily Beast spend all their time trying to trick their readers? And it's, again, probably not hard to set that trap. As Mika Brzezinski and Chris Matthews explained, probably not hard to set that trap and trick those people. If you're reading the Daily Beast, you're halfway there. You're probably already getting tricked everywhere you go if you're reading that rag. But they're trying to convince you that Ron DeSantis is the bad guy, not the guy who was a serial killer and who raped and murdered 10 women. Feel bad for him. Be mad at Ron DeSantis. It's bizarro world. It's topsy-turvy. It's bizarro world. And that is why no one trusts these outlets anymore. That's why no one trusts these politicians. That's why the Democrats' approval rating is in the tank. Caroline Levitt told them yesterday at a presser, she said, maybe if you guys would get on board with this crime crackdown, you could improve your approval rating. But they won't do that, because to get on board with this would mean agreeing with Donald Trump on something, and they can't do that. And over the better half of 10 years, we've seen the constant stream of lies and deception come out of these agencies and these administrations and these institutions. And Charlie Kirk was on CNBC, and he did such a great job of breaking down why people have lost faith in the media, in our leaders, and why it's probably not going to come back. Can I have cut one, please? In a post-COVID world, I'm just an idealist to believe that. Hold on, Andrew. You're not you're not intolerant. You're not going with this. Yeah. We did not receive any apologies from the ruling class that lied to us repeatedly during COVID. The lockdowns, the efficacy of the vaccine, mask mandates, school closures, and we just act as if it didn't happen. And I don't think the American ruling class understands the undermining of their credibility that happened when the entire country had their lives thwarted, especially young people. We're just supposed to reopen the country and be like, well, why don't you trust us anymore? Well, it's because, the Hunter Biden laptops, Russian disinformation, 50 intel operations signed this letter. And I'm making a good point here, because there was no contrition. That's just one example. I could go one after the other. No. I would say that actually COVID, to me, this is actually generational, is actually very much like the 2008 crisis in a way. Okay, that spawned Occupy Wall Street. This has sort of spawned a different sort of political. You want to do Russian collusion? You want to do the laptop? You want to do? Take your pick on the way things are covered in this country. All I'm suggesting, though, is this full-on, constant relitigation of what took place in the past, as opposed to a clear-eyed view of what's happening. Yeah, I would just interject respectfully that it's not just relitigation. First of all, no one was held accountable largely for what happened. That's why I said it's sort of like 2008, because a lot of people thought all those bankers were supposed to go to jail. Well, and honestly, there should have been. I think there should have been some administration of justice. That's a separate issue. I was young at the time. I can only speak about what we're living through now. And a lot of the COVID injustices we are still seeing today, with younger people and their ability to own homes, with the inflation that President Trump is trying to fix that was inherited by Joe Biden. So what I'm getting at, and I know a lot of the C-suite of America watches this program, they might understand, where is this populist fervor coming from, is that you have missed the mark on so many of the core proclamations you made to the American people. Yeah, I think he's dead on there. And I think that respectful interjection with the host of CNBC was necessary, because there's a key to contrition, there's a key to apologies. And the first step in moving forward, which is something the left only wants to do when it's a topic they don't want to talk about. They already want to move forward from the fact that Joe Biden was a vegetable for 4 years. And they told us, they didn't just ignore it. It's one thing to say, they admitted some details. They left out some key facts. They deflected. No. That's not what happened, people. It was not deflection. They were in my face day in and day out, trying to convince me that this guy was splitting the atom. that behind the scenes, this man was Goodwill Hunting. Okay? He was filling out equations. He was running around the hallways of the White House with big leather-bound books. And he was the smartest man alive, besides Hunter, of course. You know, that's the smartest guy he knows. I don't know where they rank. We have to do an IQ test. I don't know who comes out on top, Hunter or Joe. It'd have to be Joe in his prime. It couldn't be now. But in their prime, I don't know. I don't know. That would be a toss-up. But they weren't just telling us, don't look at Joe Biden. They were saying, look at him. Look at how great he is. Look how fabulous he's doing. Look how smart he is. And the one that would kill me was like KJP and Jill. They'd always say, I can't keep up. I can't keep up. We have 30-year-old staffers who can't keep up with this guy. He's just too good. It was insulting. It was insulting how often and how passionately they lied to us over and over and over again. And the key with that, why I bring that up, is because they're already trying to move on from that because it no longer serves them. That lie no longer serves them. It luckily didn't work. People found out about it. People caught on. People didn't fall for that trap set by Joe Biden because Americans, despite what you might think, despite, some times of turbulence where you lose hope, Americans are a lot smarter, I think, than we give ourselves credit for. So people figured that out. They cracked that curious case of Joe Biden. And there was no accountability. And you go back to COVID, and there was no mea culpa. There might have been like glimmers of it or fake ones that people would give if they were trying to sell a book like Jake Tapper, but there wasn't a real apology. And my rule on apologies, and I've always felt this way, my mom taught me this, is if someone comes to you, if producer Chris came to me, okay, and he really messed up, okay, he really hurt my feelings, or he ticked me off in some way. And he came to me and he said, Grace, I'm really sorry about that. That was my bad. He really meant it. And I could tell he really meant it. I would forgive him because at that point, he's done all he can do. And at that point, it falls on me to give the mercy. And if you're not going to give mercy to people, if you're not going to give forgiveness to people, then you should understand that when it comes back around and you're asking for forgiveness, someone might not be so willing to give it to you. And it's the best feeling. If you apologize for something and you mean it deep down and someone says to you, don't worry about it, or I know you didn't mean to do it, don't worry, don't think about it again. It is the greatest gift that someone can give to you. And I say that as someone who's asked for forgiveness a few times in my life. And when you run into someone who says, hey, don't think twice about it, you want to give them a big hug. You're like, you're the best person ever. We never got that. We never got anything close to that. So for all these people saying, well, let's move on. Let's not relitigate. Let's not harp on the past. Let's forgive people. That's the funniest one to me about COVID. The people missed graduations. They weren't able to bury their parents or be in the hospital when their parents died. They missed out on weddings. They missed out on they had their businesses destroyed. Their kids were put way back educationally because of the school closures. Who knows what happened to all those kids emotionally? I don't think we're ever going to understand the full effects of that. And now you're saying, well, we have to forgive people who were tyrants during that time because they didn't know enough. Well, you know what would be a good first step for those people? I'm going to give those people a big tip, okay? A good first step would be saying you're sorry. That's the first step. Before we start talking about moveon.org, it's time to move on with your life. We can't live in the past. And you know what the real ironic part is? I've actually written about this before because it really drives me nuts. The same people who are like, let's move on with our lives. There's no use living in the past. We're talking about today. This is a popular trend with like the Chuck Schumers, the Nancy Pelosi's. You notice that whenever something's inconvenient for them, all they want to do is relitigate January 6th. That's the exception to the rule. Everyone has to forgive Democrats for their lies and their misdeeds and their coups. We're going to get to Russiagate in the third hour. Their entire orchestrated attempts to take down a duly elected president. You're not supposed to harp on that. Stop being so obsessed with the past, man. One of my favorite Seinfeld quotes. You're living in the past, man. You're hung up on a clown from the 60s. You're supposed to move on. But when they want to harp, when they want to go down memory lane, when Cory Booker and Ed Markey and ex-Speaker Pelosi want to blame Trump for January 6th, every day is January 6th. I think that was a real headline in the New York Times. Every day is January 6th. They can't get enough of that day. It's like Groundhog Day with them. So when it's something that they think is convenient, then you can live in it. You can have multi-million-dollar, years-long investigations complete with Liz Cheney and producers from ABC creating these spectacles for TV about this horrible, horrible day. They never want to move on from it. But when it comes to the things that affected you, whether it closed your business or it destroyed your child's education, or your kid didn't get to graduate, have a real graduation, or your kid didn't get to have his last year of soccer in high school, then it's okay. Then it's like, put that in the rearview mirror. Stop being such a clinger to things that happen. No, we're not going to forget. And it's not healthy to forget that kind of stuff. That's like an abusive relationship. You lie to me over and over again for years at a time about significant things. You tell me to my face that I'm going crazy, that when I see the president shaking hands with ghosts, that I'm the one who's out of my mind. And then, when all that's said and done, after a decade of deceit, you tell me I'm the one who has to move on? I'm the one who has to forget about it and fall right back into that abusive cycle? I don't think so. Not on my watch. If other people want to hop back into it, they can, but it's not happening for me. They'll never get me back there. They'll never get me back. This is Stacy on the right. My name is Grace Curley. I'm filling in for the fabulous Stacy Washington. If you want to call in, it's 866-957-2874, and we will be right back.
Art News Daily with your host, Mike Slater.
We've been asking the question in our culture, what is a woman? Well, now the question is, what is an American? Let's talk about why this question matters. Come on.
Art News Daily. Weekdays at 6 a.m. Eastern on Sirius XM Patriot 125. This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-619-6488 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-619-6488. That's 800-619-6488. What do you have to lose? Call 800-619-6488. Again, 800-619-6488.
It's time to dream big and book that bucket list golf trip to Scotland or Ireland. Play iconic courses like St. Andrews, Carnoustie, Lahinch, and more. Gulf Breaks makes golf travel easy. Expert advice, guaranteed best prices, and no booking fees. Join over 3 million golfers who've rated us excellent on Trustpilot. Turn that dream trip into a tee time. Visit golfbreaks.com or call 844-676-GOLF.
Patrick was way behind on his IRS taxes.
I was in way over my head. The total amount ended up being somewhere just over $30,000. $30,000.
Then the IRS came to collect.
Started getting letter after letter. A lien had been filed against me, and they were going to basically hang me completely out to dry.
He had to do something.
That's when I reached out to Optima Tax Relief.
Patrick's life quickly got a lot easier.
It was very easy, pretty much hands off. They picked up the ball and ran with it.
And how'd it go?
I couldn't believe it. I had to ask 2 or 3 times. I saved an incredible amount of money.
How does Patrick feel about Optima?
Couldn't be happier. They definitely helped me. Optima Tax Relief, the best place to call. They're the best in the business.
Do what Patrick did and call Optima Tax Relief for a free consultation. Call 800-611-8892. 800-611-8892. 800-611-8892. Optima Tax Relief. Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Sanctity of life. Strong family.
We are
Sirius XM Patriot.
Channel 125.
Conservative principles live here. outrageously American. This is Stacy on the Right on Sirius XM Patriot 125.
Welcome back, everyone, to Stacy on the Right. Stacy Washington is not here tonight, but you do have Grace Curley, and I am beyond excited to be here with all of you and to be going over some of the hot topics of the day. And one of those topics is moving on from the past sins of the Democrats and the media. And I just played a cut from Charlie Kirk on Squawk Box, where he was running through the lists of all of the major scandals and cover-ups, really. I think that's how I would categorize these things, whether it be COVID, whether it be Joe Biden's mental decline, it's hard to call that a cover-up because he was pretty out there with it. He wasn't doing a great job at convincing us the emperor had clothes on, and he was getting trapped in closets and shaking hands with ghosts. So there was definitely, if you looked close enough, there were some ways you might decipher that something was afoot. And then obviously another really, really big one is the Russiagate, which we'll talk about. But there have just been so many occasions where we've been lied to. And this attempt by Trump haters, there's no good and there's no value in doing that. It's actually even crazier than just that, because I want to play a cut for you here. So now we're talking merges this denial of the crime, of the crime wave in DC, and also this attempt to minimize things based off, well, that's in the past. That happened a while ago. So this is Doug Hay, okay? And he's on with Karen Finney on CNN, and he's proving the DC crime problem. And listen to her response. This is cut 5.
Interesting is The Atlantic, of all places, had a great article that was reporting that there's this idea of the few that keep perpetrating the same crimes. And DC is one of these places where they're not actively prosecuted. So it's the same people going out. Especially if they're under 18.
Or there's cash free bail.
Yeah, that same piece also said that the way Trump is going about this is not actually how you would do it if you were trying to go after those individuals. If you get these people and you get them off the streets on a permanent basis, it would reduce crime by 60%. If you have the budget, you can't
Kids that mugged me 5 blocks from here 2 years ago did the same thing half an hour earlier, a mile away, and the cop said, "Good luck, we're never going to catch them." One way,
How many years ago? 2 years ago. 2 years ago.
Okay, we
go
to 3. Great, let's go to Union Station, 3 blocks from here.
Pause it right there for me, Chris.
2 weeks ago.
2 years ago. So now his point about the crime he witnessed or he was the victim of doesn't count because it was 2 years ago. He should just move on, according to Karen Finney. It's gone down since then. There's nothing to worry about. Even Democrats like Mika Brzezinski admit that citing statistics to someone who's gone through a crime is a real losing political message. But that's exactly what that lady tried to do. And what it reminded me of, I got a flashback to Joe Biden when he was being asked about the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. And people flying off the airplane at Kabul airport, I think it was, or Bagram airport. And his response was, that was 5 days ago. That was 5 days ago. Like, come on, man. That was, and you're sitting here going, well, so we're supposed to, so whether it was 5 days ago, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 10 years ago, we're just supposed to give you guys carte blanche to do whatever you want, whenever you want, and no one has to pay a price for it. No one has to be, and sometimes the price is just like, hey, Muriel Bowser, you're gonna have to accept help. Like, that's her big punishment. It's not, hey, you've been such a failure as a mayor that Trump, the dictator, is throwing you in jail. The punishment is we're sending in the National Guard and we're going to enforce the law and we're going to try to make the city safer. Not the worst punishment for someone who has been an abysmal failure for most of her career. She should be thanking Donald Trump. She should be saying, oh, great, this is perfect. This is just what we need. And maybe get out of the way. Maybe take this as an opportunity to say, hey, I've tried my hand at this for a few years now. Doesn't seem like I'm having a lot of success. I'll let you guys try it. Let's see, what do we have to lose here? And one of the topics that keeps being brought up is January 6th. And I want to play this cut for you because this is Ed Markey. I'm a Massachusetts girl. Unfortunately, Ed Markey is ours. He's our senator. We have to claim him. And this is what he had to say about Trump deploying the National Guard. This is cut 7.
Trump refused to send in the National Guard when insurrectionists violently attacked the nation's capital. But now he's sending them to D.C. for a non-existent crime wave, all to distract from his refusal to release the Epstein files. Trump is acting like a dictator, and he must be stopped.
Yeah, besides the Epstein files thing, which that was the same thing that we heard from Al Sharpton. It was the same thing we heard from Cory Booker. So one of my favorite parts about following these social media stars who pretend to be politicians is that when they get their talking points, when their social media influencer PR person tells them what to do, they don't even change it up slightly. You know, you'd copy someone's homework, or someone would ask to copy your homework. Not a lot of people are asking to copy my homework. I actually take offense to that. I was always left out of that. Like, anyone want to copy mine? Everyone's like, no, we're good. We see the numbers you're pulling in. We're okay. But one of the things, if anyone did ever ask me, if I got that lone person who didn't understand, that they'd probably be better off just hurrying along and filling in the answers. One of the things that you always say when someone says, can I copy your homework? Chris, you know what I'm about to say?
Change your answer.
You change it up a little bit. Very good. Very good. That's the correct answer. Chris would have gotten an A+. So instead of writing the exact same sentence, mix it up a little bit. Use some synonyms. Get a couple wrong. Don't make it too exact. These are things you learn when you're in like 7th grade. And yet, these politicians, they get these talking points. Okay, so talk about the Epstein files. Talk about this. Talk about that. And they just regurgitate it word for word. They don't even try to put in an or an or jazz it up a little bit, make it seem a little off the cuff. And Ed Markey's old. He's like ancient, so he really can't do it. But I would expect more from Spartacus. I would expect more from some of these politicians. But so they have the standard thing now, which is Trump didn't want to call in the National Guard on January 6th, and he's trying to distract from Jeffrey Epstein. None of these people knew Jeffrey Epstein's name for the past 4 years when Democrats were in charge and Joe Biden was in the White House. But now they are as obsessed with Jeffrey Epstein as they are with pronouns, okay? They are obsessed with Epstein. They couldn't be bothered to care for 4 years. But let's put that aside for a second. And let's just talk about the National Guard and the January 6th claim. Because the former Capitol Police Chief, Stephen Sund, this is from KFOX TV, called out former Speaker Pelosi. She didn't make a video. That's a little bit beyond her, I think, to film herself like Cory Booker does with the ring light and everything. She just tweeted out, Donald Trump delayed deploying the National Guard on January 6th when our Capitol was under violent attack and lives were at stake. Even for Pelosi, the queen of lies, the queen of crumbs, this is a whopper of a lie. And in fact, the former Capitol Police Chief called her out on it on Twitter. This is what he said. Ma'am, it is long past time to be honest with the American people. On January 3rd, I requested National Guard assistance. Your sergeant was denied it. When the federal law has prohibited that same day, Carol Corbin, Pentagon offered National Guard support. But I was pushed to decline because I lacked legal authority. And the day of the riots, he said Pelosi repeated the request to deploy the National Guard for over 70 agonizing minutes. While she was running it up, while they were running it up the chain for her approval. When I needed assistance with denied, yet when I sued you, you ordered fencing top to acquire and surround it. And to further back up Stephen Sun's point, in case you're out there saying it's a piece of the MAGA type piece trying to defend MAGA, Pelosi admitted it in a documentary that was filmed at the time of January 6th by her daughter. She admitted it on camera that she took responsibility for not being more prepared. And now this lady has the, I'll use the nicer term, the cojones, the stones, to turn around and say it was Trump's fault that the National Guard wasn't ready for January 6th. When we have a documentary proving that she dropped the ball, and she admitted that. And they all can point the finger all they want. But people have moved on from January 6th, whether you like it or not. People have moved on. They saw the investigation, saw the millions of dollars spent, saw the movies and the books and the tweets and the articles, and they feel as though they've had their fill of January 6th. It is no longer the winning issue the left thinks it is. So when Trump's trying to clean up crime in D.C., and all they want to do is rewind the clock and go back to that terrible day, it's not working. No one is buying this. People want crime to decrease. And they're not satisfied with, well, there's been a slight decrease from 2024. We're in the age of Trump now. We're in the golden age. We're shooting for the stars. The sky is the limit here. And a lot of the same people who said there's nothing you can do about the border without bipartisan legislation are now looking at these numbers that say 0 crossings in the last 3 months. They're the ones telling you that crime can't be improved upon in D.C. I beg to differ, and I think Trump does too. We'll be right back. It's Stacey on the right. I'm Grace Curley. Don't go anywhere.
Yes. Hey, I'm Jim, a small business owner from Arizona, just trying to grow while avoiding general stupidity, mine and others. I went to my bank officer of 15 years looking for a loan. After a month of collecting paperwork and another 8 weeks of underwriting, they couldn't help. I nearly lost a major manufacturing contract that would have doubled my business. At the last second, a friend referred me to Delta Capital Group. I got approved in hours and funded for $750,000 the very next day.
Delta Capital Group is a national leader providing lines of credit and term loans for businesses just like yours. Same-day approval, no collateral, any credit score. Rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau. Over half of their business comes from referrals and happy repeat customers. Why? Delta Capital gets business done. Smart business owners don't wait for money.
Now we're running double shifts to keep up with demand.
Be smart like Jim. Get your money at deltacap.com. That's deltacap.com.
Picture this. The power goes out.
Hey, Michael.
Your cell phone only has 50% charge.
Sorry about that. I'm
You
trying
just
to
went to the grocery store
deal
and
with
have
my
a
son
fridge full of
while I'm
food.
driving.
Oh, and it's the middle of summer. It's hot. That's right. No fridge, no phone, no AC. Just silence, sweat, and all of your groceries slowly spoiling. Well, not anymore. Thanks to the Patriot Power Generator 2500X from 4 Patriots. You won't have to depend on a crumbling power grid. It's solar powered, fuel free, and comes fully charged so you can stay powered through hurricanes, blackouts, or whatever life throws your way. And right now, you'll get a mini generator absolutely free, plus 2 free solar panels. Because, let's be honest, the power grid is aging, blackouts are getting longer, and no one's fixing it anytime soon. So stop waiting. Take power into your own hands. Visit 4patriots.com now. That's the number 4patriots.com and claim your power independence while this offer lasts.
Personal responsibility to rule of law. Sirius XM Patriot.
Channel 125.
Conservative principles live here.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Jason Walker. President Trump says there will be very severe consequences if Russian President Vladimir Putin does not agree to stop the war in Ukraine. Two leaders will be meeting at that summit coming up Friday in Anchorage. Census Bureau says the United States population of foreign-born residents is rapidly decreasing under President Trump. The latest Census Bureau numbers show the total number of foreign-born people in the country dropped by 2.2 million from January through July. Most of those who left, 1.6 million, came from the illegal immigrant population. The numbers show an unprecedented turnaround in that illegals are now leaving the country at an even faster pace than the 120,000 a month that flooded into the country under President Biden. Bob Agnew reporting. Correspondent Ben Thomas reporting GE Appliances shifting more production to the United States. GE Appliances says it's investing more than $3 billion to expand U.S. operations. Part of that will involve shifting production of refrigerators, gas ranges, and water heaters out of China and Mexico. The company says it expects to add more than 1,000 jobs and modernize its U.S. plants over the next 5 years. The first phase will begin at plants in Kentucky, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, and South Carolina. Most of GE Appliances production is already in the United States, but the plan will transfer more work to domestic plants. I'm Ben Thomas. Several kids have been injured when a Texas school bus rolled over after veering off a country road on the first day of class. Officials say at least 3 people have sustained severe or even life-threatening injuries. The bus had state-mandated seat belts the children were required to wear. And a family of 3 has been killed in Tennessee. That when a tree fell on their car during heavy flooding. More on these stories, townhall.com.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
Hi, my name's Neil. I have some advice for you if you've been trying to break free from credit card debt. You can start by doing what I did. Get your bills together and call Trinity Debt Management. Trinity is dedicated to helping people like me become debt-free. When I called, my first experience was a feeling of relief. My counselor was kind, and best of all, she didn't judge me. In just a few minutes, she helped me figure out a plan that consolidated all my bills into one lower monthly payment. This substantially reduced my high interest rates and put me on the road to success. In the end, I saved thousands in interest, and today my credit card debt is a thing of the past.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-990-6976.
My name is Neil. Take it from someone who's been there. Call Trinity and become debt-free for keeps.
1-800-990-6976.
It's not a real race, at least not yet, but many New Yorkers believe it could be eventually. Governor Kathy Hochul has lost a chunk of her big lead over potential Republican challenger in the latest snapshot of a possible matchup of next year's race. Ernie Bennett has more on the story.
The Democratic incumbent led Representative Lee Stefanik by 45% to 31% in a Siena College survey of voters released Tuesday, a 14-point edge that had shrunk from the 23-point lead Hochul held in the Siena poll from June. Huge shares of voters in both polls declined to pick a favorite in the hypothetical race, showing a lot of room for shifts in either direction if the matchup takes place. Stefanik, who has represented northeastern New York in the House for more than a decade, is weighing a 2026 run for governor and says she'll announce her decision after this November's elections for county and local offices in New York. Ernie Bennett reporting.
Breaking news and analysis, townhall.com.
Christian, mother, wife, Air Force veteran, gun rights advocate.
This is Stacey on the Right. Here's your host, Stacey Washington.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Stacey on the Right. We are in the last hour here, and that does not mean we're slowing down. My name is Grace Curley. I have the privilege of filling in for Stacey Washington. I'm a huge fan of hers and the program, and so this is really a thrill for me. I hope you guys are enjoying it thus far. We've had some great guests on, and we are about to have another one. Anthony LaBruna, the executive director of American Principles Project. And Anthony's here, I think, to talk about a few different Democrats and a few different issues. But we're going to start with Mamdani. because Zohran Mamdani has a radical agenda. There's no doubt about it. He's talked about his economic ideas. I think that's what's garnered the most attention. He refused to condemn the slogan, globalize the intifada, during an interview with Kristen Welker. And so this man, no matter how you slice it, is a radical. But what Anthony LaBruna is drilling down on is his End the Family agenda. Anthony, thank you so much for coming on Stacey on the Right. We really appreciate it. Break this down for us. What about Zohran Mamdani's agenda scares you as far as the family unit goes?
Well, I think the one thing we have to point out is, Mamdani is now a real threat. He's polling at 44% in the mayoral race, and that's not good. And he's using the DSA, Democratic Socialist Association, there to really push this socialist agenda for New York. But he's really a tool and a puppet for them, right? They don't really care about who their vessel is going to be, as long as they get to push their...
No, I'm not taking the wife out tonight. Working DoorDash, actually.
What his platform has really been
trying to make some extra bucks.
To break down the very foundation of Americans' morals and our ideals, which is God, family, and country. They look to strip all that away and replace the traditional family unit with a state-run family. And that's something we cannot tolerate as Americans. There has to be a call to action for New Yorkers. A man like Mamdani should not be leading one of America's most powerful cities in any aspect. If that's mayor, councilman, you take guys like him and you run him out of politics because he's what's bad for the country.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of crazy that he is doing so well in this race, because a lot of these issues that you're hitting on, parental rights, gender affirming care, which is really just mutilating children in order to make them feel as though they are the opposite sex. A lot of these issues, when it comes to the vast majority of Americans, do not poll well for Democrats. Americans are not on board for some of the key parts of this radical agenda. So why is it that that's not getting through in New York, at least? Are people in New York City this far left that they're now embracing this kind of extremism? And talk a little bit about, how I would describe it, Anthony, because I remember Joe Biden saying this at one point. He kind of slipped up and he said something like, your children are all of our children, or it was something, I'm paraphrasing there, but it was something along those lines. That's a real Marxist idea, this idea that parents and their rights and their opinions don't have a voice, and that the government should be taking over. So why is it that these kind of scary concepts are gaining so much footing in New York City?
Well, I think you have to take the first, real honest approach here. New York City has done it to themselves. They are the way they are now because of its former leadership, Mayor Eric Adams. And honestly, I'd rather have someone like Eric Adams be the mayor again. And he's the devil we know. Mamdani is someone who's going to be far to the left, more radical, and he has no true vision for the city. He's just letting the DSA, given his policies, he's got a lot of them helping on his campaign and advising. My concern is that they get in the government positions. But kind of back to what you said, I think this is really popular in the city of New York, not the state of New York. If you take Mamdani out of the city of New York and you have him be tested in the whole entire state of New York, he only polls at 20 to 18%. He's not favorable. He could not win a statewide. But it's the way that New York City has basically exploded or imploded on itself, with the crime rate, with the illegal coming into the city. They set themselves up for failure. And that's what, there's this quote, hard times make for, strong men make for easy times make for weak men make hard times, right? That's exactly what the city of New York has done. They have continually had these weak leaders in the city of New York. You've allowed the city to, implode on itself. But I think there's a lot of ways that we're going to be able to prevent this far left ideology from growing. And I think that's, a two-pronged thing. One, you have to get a governor of the state of New York, like an Elise Stefanik, to, run and go beat Hochul.
Okay.
Right? You're going to see a lot of state dollars fall out and not be able to fund the city of New York. And the other part is that President Trump doesn't allow for their $8 billion in federal funding to go through if they're going to push this ideology. And we've already seen that with President Trump when, Gavin Newsom and the governor of Maine, wanted to continue this women's sport. He starts pulling federal funding. He goes, has Linda McMahon, kind of be his bad guy, go there and say, hey, you've got 9 days to do this. If not, federal funding's gone in education. Well, they quickly, turned another tune and got on track. And I think they have that opportunity now to do that for, Mondani if he does win. And right now it's looking likely he wins. If you look at the issues, though, he actually goes back and forth, right? As a hypocrite, he's a married man. And he's talked about the traditional family values and how he's always had that. And if you go to his Wikipedia page, he has a whole thing on representing the working family party. Well, he wants to rebuild that and have it as a state-run institution. He's a hypocrite.
Yeah, and I think he's a hypocrite on a number of different things, including his anti-capitalist approach and his talk about seizing the means of production and abolishing private property. Meanwhile, he's having these ritzy weddings in Uganda. So, I mean, I think being a hypocrite who doesn't live by his own rules is just part of what makes Zohran Mamdani who he is. But I did want to ask you, so you talked a little bit about the importance of electing a governor like someone like Elise Stefanik. I was actually reading about polling about Elise Stefanik recently. And while she's still very far off from Kathy Hochul as to be expected, there does seem to be hope that she could make a run for this. My question as far as Zohran goes, and I know you sound like you think it's most likely going to be him. If we were still in the world of, hey, there's a way that someone else could beat him, do the other candidates like Andrew Cuomo, Curtis Sliwa, do they have to drop out and support Eric Adams, or maybe, Eric Adams and Sliwa support Cuomo? I don't know how it would work, but does something have to give there? And if it's really this extreme, if it's really this dangerous, and I believe you, I'm speaking with Anthony LaBruna, but these guys also claim that. They also claim that he'd be terrible for the city-run grocery stores, all of these bad ideas, terrible for families in New York. Then why aren't they stepping aside and throwing all their weight behind one of the candidates as opposed to splitting this up three ways?
Well, I think, as Republicans, if I were to, have my choice, it'd be Eric Adams. He's not a threat for anything in the future. Andrew Cuomo was the governor of New York. You may not like him, but he is a very skilled politician. He's very good with engaging with people on a certain level, especially when he was governor. His brother and him are, very well-known family. Their father. He would be someone who would be a threat on the national stage. Potentially one day, and he'd be a threat to Gavin Newsom and any of the other Democratic hopefuls who want to run for president. Early on in 24, before he kind of, I believe it's not 24, 2022, he was potentially going to run for president, and he would have been very much a someone I would be concerned about. You have two big personalities, Cuomo versus Trump. We not saying that Trump won't win, but he is much more of a adversary I would be very concerned to deal with. I would like to see them get behind someone. I think the biggest thing is egos. No one wants to drop out because they think they're the right guy for the job. And sometimes to save the country and put the betterment of our fellow citizens at the forefront, you have to do sacrifices. You have to come to reality. It's going to be someone outside of Mandani. It's probably going to be one of those three. And right now, Andrew Cuomo's got the best option. He's at 25%. Eric Adams at 7%. I was the other gentleman around 3 to 7%. So even with all that, they need all the support that they can get. But I think this kind of goes back to, where we were originally at is the Democratic Party of New York has set Mandani up for success without realizing it. They've created this beast in New York, allowing the socialists to continue. I mean, you look at some of the stuff they're saying. One of their members is saying they want to abort a baby in a church over my dead body. Like, you've got to fight these guys. I was meeting with our staff today, and they asked that question. Okay, what are we going to do about Mandani? I said, we have no choice. Like, American Principle stands for the defense of the family. We are the special interest group for the American family. If there is not another person that we need to go fight back against, across the country, it's Mandani. He's literally attacking traditional family values and the traditional family. And there's no greater threat, especially as his popularity rises. So I think out of all these men, Cuomo probably has the best shot with name ID, financially, with his connections with his family and his brother. Like, he has the best opportunity to put him down. But I think people don't understand. Mandani has this way of selling himself as, a blue-collar guy, hardworking. But that's just not the case. He's a Nepo baby. He's a failed actor, just like AOC was, right? You guys, they can't cut it in Hollywood, and then they go to the big city and they start running. That's how you got AOC to start running for Congress. His mother and his father brought up this gentleman. His mother was a producer in Hollywood and a filmmaker. Her movies are terrible, by the way. There's not one I know. She worked for Disney for a while. She says that she turned down major roles to do some of these Indian movies over in Uganda and India, and I have no idea what they are. It was terrible. But, he's lived in the laps of luxury. He has a compound over in Uganda. He's always had wealth. And, the one thing I can say is that, his father definitely lived the American dream and worked his way out of, India when it was under British colonial rule. Found his way to the United States, educated in a Columbia University professor. How do you have a son who turns out like this, who hates the very founded, the traditions of America? How do you have someone like that? I think there's something in the school, and I think there's a major concern. So, back to your original question, I think it could be Cuomo. I think the other guys need to all rally behind him and get him, across the finish line to beat Mandani.
Well, Anthony LaBruna, I love your insight into this race and your passion for standing up for American values.
Well, thank you, Michael. Good to see you, man. It's been a while.
He's the executive director of American Principles Project. You can follow him.
Sorry, I've been occupied.
At Anthony_LaBruna. And I appreciate you coming on to Stacy on the Right here at Sirius XM Patriot. I know the listeners appreciate it as well, and we'll talk to you again very soon. When we come back, we're going to switch gears, and we're going to talk about Russia, because this was a little Wednesday surprise for us. The DNI Tulsi Gabbard. It's starting to make sense why all of these swamp creatures opposed to Tulsi Gabbard getting that position as DNI. They were really not happy about it. There was a real panic. There was a trembling happening in D.C. It can't be Tulsi. No, she's a Russian agent. No, this and that. And every piece of information she declassifies about Russia, about this Russia hoax, another piece of the puzzle falls into place. Also have updates on the Texas Democrats who made a big stink about going to Illinois. They said, we're getting on our private planes. We're going to see J.B. Pritzker, one of the good billionaires. Don't confuse him with the bad billionaire. He's a good billionaire. If you're a billionaire and you support gerrymandering in Democrat states, then you're A-OK. If you're a billionaire and you support Donald Trump, not good. You're the devil incarnate. And so they make this big show of it. they make TikToks. It's similar to what Anthony was just saying about Zoran Mondani. They're all social media influencers. Like, I'm ready for them to drop their skincare routines and tell me, link in bio if you want to get the dress I'm wearing. It's all about this nonsense. They're like teenagers. Hey, here's a picture of me getting on a private jet to fight the end of democracy, to fight the patriarchy, to fight Orange Man. I'm getting on this private jet and I'm not going to work for 2 weeks. I'm throwing a temper tantrum, like my photo. And now they have to come back. Now, the 2 weeks, I think it's been 2 weeks, I don't know, it's all a blur. It's over, they're coming back. The first special session ended, they're coming back for the second one. And according to the reports, they feel as though they've done their job. They raised national awareness about redistricting in Texas. Did they, though? Like, they raised national awareness for certain groups across this nation. For the blue-haired grandmas who were sitting in at the Capitol protesting this, hands off my Texas, hands off my district. But for the most part, I don't know how much this really pierced through to the rest of the country. I don't know if this is the conversation that people are having around the kitchen table. We'll talk about it. Also, you want to talk about big things happening. We've got the declassified info from Tulsi Gabbard. And tonight, Chris, I'm sure you've been following this as you produce this show, probably also keeping your eye out on the podcast that Taylor Swift is having with her boyfriend, Travis Kelce. That's huge news right now on the internet. Everyone's freaking out. A new album's coming out. And I bet you're thinking to yourself, Grace is going to make fun of the people who care about that. But I'm about to blow your minds. I'm about to rock your world. Get you a girl who can do both. I can be focused on Tulsi Gabbard and these declassified emails, and I can care about the new Taylor Swift album. I am a jack of all trades. That's what I do best. We'll be right back. We're going to break all this down for you. Do not go anywhere. We've got a few segments left on Stacey on the Right. Stay with us.
Breitbart News Saturday. Matt Boyle, Senator J.D. Vance. We're going to do it, Matt. We just need the people to help. Elise Stefanik, Congressman from the great state of New York. Senator John Barrasso. He is the Senate Majority Whip. Jake, where'd you be when you guys? Saturday Destination. Alex Story, Benson, Park, Caller Lines. Hey, how is it feel to actually have a president? It's amazing. Breitbart News Saturday with Matt Boyle live Saturdays 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. East exclusively on Sirius XM Patriot Channel 125. It's an interesting time for business. Tariff and trade policies are dynamic, supply chains squeezed, and cash flow tighter than ever. If your business can't adapt in real time, you're in a world of hurt. You need total visibility, from global shipments to tariff impacts to real-time cash flow. That's NetSuite by Oracle, your AI-powered business management suite trusted by over 42,000 businesses. NetSuite is the #1 cloud ERP for many reasons. It brings accounting, financial management, inventory, HR into one suite. And with AI embedded throughout, you can automate a lot of these everyday tasks, letting your teams stay strategic. NetSuite helps you know what's stuck, what it's costing you, and how to pivot fast. It's one system, full control. Tame the chaos with NetSuite. If your revenues are at least in the 7 figures, download the free ebook, Navigating Global Trade 3 Insights for Leaders at netsuite.com/nation. That's netsuite.com/nation. Have you heard about the remarkable promise of stem cell therapy? Ethical, science-driven treatments are offering real hope for people facing Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, heart disease, stroke recovery, rheumatoid arthritis, and more. At the forefront of this breakthrough field is Bespoke Biologics, online at BespokeStemCell.com. With over 15 years of experience, the medical team at Bespoke Biologics provides personalized concierge-level care using advanced stem cell therapies, not only to address chronic conditions, but also to support anti-aging, immune strength, and overall vitality. And now, for a limited time, when you commit to a treatment plan, you'll receive complimentary luxury travel, including airfare and hotel, fully arranged just for you. That's right. World-class care and a first-class experience, all from one trusted name. Bespoke Biologics, destination medicine at its finest. Visit BespokeStemCell.com today. That's BespokeStemCell.com. Your path to a healthier, stronger, younger tomorrow. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Metallica is coming
Coming to Sirius XM.
Maximum Metallica, it will be called. Could you imagine when you start and you drive around that van, you have your own radio channel?
They'll celebrate their new channel, Maximum Metallica, with one of their most intimate performances ever at Stevens Hawk House on Long Island. For details, visit SiriusXM.com/MetallicaNY. And get ready for Maximum Metallica, coming to Channel 42 and the SiriusXM app August 29th.
866-957-2874. Stacy on the right with Stacy Washington on Sirius XM Patriot.
Hi, are you checking in with your app to earn reward points?
The DoorDash for Irna T.
What was the name again? I'm sorry.
IRYNATE.
Yeah, I'll get the full with them.
All right.
Before I get into this pretty meaty story about the declassified emails that Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, just released, I wanted to give you an update on this meeting between Trump and Putin that is set for Friday. Last I checked, it's still on. I mean, this is very tentative. Anything with Vladimir Putin is going to be up in the air until the very last second. But this is from the New York Post. It says President Trump assured Zelensky on a Wednesday call that his main goal for Friday's meeting with Putin is to push for a ceasefire. But he is not very optimistic the dictator will budge. If Putin does not agree to a ceasefire, then Trump is likely to hit Russia with sanctions. Hours earlier, Zelensky told reporters in Berlin that he, Trump, and other European leaders demonstrated one voice, one desire, and one principle ahead of the U.S.-Russia summit in Anchorage, Alaska. So a few of my takeaways here is that Trump has made it very clear. He's been very open and transparent in keeping us up to date with where his head is at in regards to brokering some sort of ceasefire or some sort of peace between these two countries. And he's been very honest about the fact that he did not think it was going to take this long, that he's dealing with a different Putin than he was dealing with in his first term. So that's number one, is that Trump is going into this pretty clear-eyed with who he's dealing with. Number two is I think Zelensky has also learned a few lessons the hard way. I think he's being a little bit more cautious about the way he talks about Trump, the way he talks about these negotiations with the media. In previous months, we've seen this guy kind of run to the media immediately in order to shape a narrative or in order to get on the good side of the liberals in the United States and really across the world. And now I think this is after his meeting in the Oval Office with Trump, he understands that he's going to get more flies with honey than he is with vinegar. Trump is someone you want on your side. Trump is a better friend than he is an enemy. And there's a certain level of respect and there's a certain level of humility that you need to have when you're getting so much help from the United States. And I have noticed that shift. I hope it keeps up. I hope that after this Friday meeting, that this kind of unified front that we're seeing between Zelensky, European leader, and Trump stays together and stays intact. Now, I've been teasing this all show. This is what I always do. I love talking about the Russiagate, the Russia hoax. And I'm going to read to you the latest here from the New York Post. Again, two stories in the New York Post, but sometimes they just lay it out in pretty simplistic terms, which I appreciate. Declassified emails show James Clapper's dismissive response to Intel community concerns over Russia election interference report. So this says here, former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper was adamant about sticking to the narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump, despite concerns raised by a top intelligence official. Clapper described the Obama administration's efforts to revamp an intelligence community assessment on Russia election meddling as a team sport and one that may require the IC to compromise its standards. So he thought it was so vital. He thought it was so vital to create this lie that Trump was colluding with Putin, that the standards that they had at that point been using in these intelligence agencies had to fall by the wayside because it was more important to him that they concoct this lie about Trump and they damage Trump for the next, 4 to 5 years than it was, actually longer than that, than it was to tell the truth or than it was to figure out what was really going on. So let me give you more details. Former National Security Agency Director Mike Rogers, who comes out looking real good in this, by the way, warned that his team had concerns about the rush to get the report out and their lack of access to the underlying intelligence being used to produce the joint product related to Russian attribution and intent for the DNC DCCC hacks, according to a declassified 2016 email from the intelligence official to Clapper, ex-CIA Director John Brennan, and former FBI Director James Comey. I know that this activity, so this is Rogers, okay? He says, I know that this activity is on a fast track and that folks have been working very hard to put together a product that can be provided to the president, Rogers wrote in the email. However, I wanted to reach out to you directly to let you know some concerns I have with what I'm hearing from my folks. Specifically, I asked my team if they had sufficient access to the underlying intelligence and sufficient time to review that intelligence. On both points, my teams raised concerns. He goes on to say, I'm concerned that given the expedited nature of this activity, my folks aren't fully comfortable saying they've had enough time to review all of the intelligence to be absolutely confident in their assessments. I do want to make sure that when we are asked in the future whether we can absolutely stand behind the paper, that we don't have any reason to hesitate because of the process. I know that you agree that this is something we need to be 100% comfortable with before we present it to the president. We have one chance to get this right, and it is critical that we do so. I'm concerned we are not there yet. So how many times does Rogers say he's concerned with this shoddy report that he's been presented and that his team has been presented with, that they can't really corroborate, that they can't see all the information because it's classified or it's compartmentalized? He says concerned quite a few times. Rogers said he would stand down on these concerns if the report didn't have to be co-authored by the NSA. But for his agency to sign off, he would need to see even the most sensitive evidence related to the conclusion. That's a smart guy. He's like, yeah, if you want us to put our name on it, then I'm going to need more information. I'm going to need to be convinced further that this is 100% accurate. Otherwise, I'm not signing this thing. I'm not putting my reputation on the line. I love people like this. It's called CYA, baby. I'm the same way. You got to be paranoid when you start signing off on things. It's going to come back to haunt you if it doesn't check out. And boy, oh boy, did it come back to haunt these people. Clapper, listen to Clapper's response. He urged the NSA to fall in line in his short response to Rogers. So this guy's writing, I'm concerned about X. I'm concerned about Y. I'm very concerned about Z. And unless you can tell me why I shouldn't be concerned about these things, I don't really feel comfortable giving this my green light. This is the reply he gets from Clapper. Understand your concern. It is essential that we, the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, the ODNI, be on the same page and are all supportive of the report. In the highest tradition of that's our story, and we're sticking to it. The ex-DNI went on to shut down any talk of more time being needed. We will facilitate as much mutual transparency as possible as we complete the report, but more time is not negotiable. We may have to compromise on our normal modalities since we must do this on such a compressed schedule. This is one project that has to be a team sport. So let me translate that for you. Shut up, Mike Rogers. We don't care that you need more time. We don't care that you have questions and concerns about this report. Fall in line, do what we say, Get on board and shut up. That's what he's telling him. We're in a rush. We're up against a deadline. We only have so much time to push out this BS Russia collusion narrative, and you're not going to stand in the way of it. That is what he's trying to say. And this guy, Clapper, is now, I don't know if people remember this, just a couple of weeks ago, he was on CNN with Caitlin Collins when Tulsi Gabbard was first declassifying some of these emails. And he was still talking about Russiagate and, how he didn't do anything wrong. And then he said, this is how he sounds. He's like, I lawyered up, I lawyered up. I guess that's what you have to do in these situations, lawyer up. And I was watching this interview, and I've seen this guy mumble and fumble and bumble on TV for 10 years now. I know he's been going on TV probably longer than that, but luckily, I'm 33. I wasn't as in tune with James Clapper in my 20s and in my teens, so I probably saved myself a lot of pain there. But he's on TV, and he's talking about how he lawyered up.
This delivery. Call customer and arrange drop-off location.
Right there, you sound guilty. Yeah, I lawyered up real quick. My first thought is, ooh,
Your call has been forwarded to voicemail.
She's not a great way to put it. But second of all, if you did in fact lawyer up, did any of these lawyers tell you to stop going on TV? To stop digging? To stop writing op-eds? To stop doubling or tripling or quadrupling down on the fact that you didn't do anything wrong? When they and you both know that more of these emails are forthcoming, that you have more of these to look forward to? Tom, you're next up on Stacy on the right. What's going on, Tom?
About Russia, Gate, I talked to one of my, someone very close to my brother who, can't stand Trump. And I remember, back in 2018, maybe 2017 to 2019, he would lecture me about how the Russian collusion, Trump Russia was true gospel. He would lecture me. It was oh yeah. And what I used to ask him? I said, can you be specific? How did, how did Russia collude? Because when I first heard about it, it didn't make sense. You just say.
Your call has been forwarded.
Vladimir Putin wanted Trump to win. It's practically impossible for him to be able to win the election. There's no way he could.
Yeah, and here's no, Tom, I'm taking in your point, and there's a few things I want to touch on with what Tom just said, and I appreciate the call. Is first of all the idea that this was something that the left was clinging to, and that was
sheets duffel mommy.
Of this. That was the whole point. That was the usefulness of a James Clapper and a John Brennan and a Barack Obama, and them creating these intelligence assessments and then leaking them to the media. The entire point was just what Tom described, which is you create this lie and then it becomes part of the zeitgeist. And all of a sudden there's murals being painted of Trump and Putin making out. And there's jokes on late night TV about how Trump's a Russian spy. And you have a Steele dossier that's being talked about where Trump was peed on by Russian hookers. And even though none of it was true, it was put out there to disparage him, to smear him, to put this asterisk next to his win. So he had this constant cloud above him. And during his actual administration, he not only had to deal with this smear campaign, but he had to deal with these investigations, these bogus investigations that were a waste of his time, his attention, and a waste of our money. Now, what Tom just said about it being gospel to a lot of the liberals, it still is. And what I'm seeing as far as the defense of this abhorrent behavior from the top brass at our intelligence agencies is this excuse of, well, even Marco Rubio and even Republican senators agreed that Russia meddled in the election. And if there's one thing I cannot stand, it's the Mickey the Dunce routine. I don't like when people who typically play smart suddenly play dumb. It bugs me. It bugs the crap out of me. And the reason that I find that excuse or that exercise in conflation to be so stomach turning is because that is not what any of these people have been claiming for the better half of 10 years. They have not been talking about solely Russia meddling in an election. They know the difference between Russia meddling in an election, which a lot of countries meddle in US elections. They know the difference between that and Trump being an asset of Vladimir Putin. And that's where Tom's point of, can you show me something? Can you show me some evidence? Can you give me a specific? Can you give me a citation to look up? That's where all of this falls apart. Because it's one thing to say Russia meddled in the election. The guy in Texas made a meme about Hillary Clinton. Did he meddle in the election too? Probably. If you ask James Clapper, he probably did. And so there's a difference between that and saying Trump was getting calls from Putin and they were hatching a scheme to make him president. And that never made sense from the beginning. It really didn't. Nothing about that tracked, especially when you think of Putin and the way he feels about the Clintons and how much he probably stood to benefit a lot more from a Hillary Clinton presidency than he did a Donald Trump presidency. So there was a lot of stuff that didn't make sense, but it didn't stop any of these people because when they want to push a lie, they're going to do it. And this also falls under what Charlie Kirk was talking about, which is once you find this stuff out, okay, once you know that Brennan and Clapper, and there was a period of time where Tom was just talking about what his relative would say to him or his friend would say to him about Russia. There was a time period where when I would talk about this on my show, I would get a lot of pushback because I was hating on the FBI. I was sipping that haterade, guys. I'm not going to lie to you. And I was hating on the CIA and John Brennan and Comey and all these people. And I was just disgusted with them because even before these emails were released, a lot of us knew all this was going on. It's just nice to have the proof right in front of us. But I would get a lot of pushback where people would say, hey, there's a lot of good rank and file people at these agencies. You know, it's the top guys. It's the guys who are powdering their noses to go on MSNBC that are the bad guys here. And after a while and being so disgusted, I started to feel like, no, I think you can get rid of the whole thing. I think the apples, they're all rotten at this point. Throw the whole barrel away. And after seeing these emails of Mike Rogers and other whistleblowers who were presenting real issues with this intelligence assessment and were voicing opposition to the way things were happening and the lack of process that was being utilized when it came to painting Trump as a Russian agent, I stand completely corrected. There does seem like there was a good number of people at these different agencies that were trying their best to keep this train on the right track, and they were being overruled by these slime balls. These scumbags were saying, we don't care. We don't care. We have a mission here. Our mission is to make this dude look bad and to set up the Democrats so that for the next 4 years, they can peddle this lie everywhere they go. And that's exactly what they did. So I agree with Tom. I think a lot of this has now entered the liberal psyche, and they're never going to admit they were wrong on it. You're never going to get an apology. You're never going to get anything, just like you didn't with COVID, just like you didn't with the Hunter Biden laptop, just like you didn't with you name it. You're never going to get it with the Russia hoax. They're going to deny. And, you know, another thing I will say is that oftentimes people will ask me, well, I have this one guy when I go to remotes, he's always asking me about, will there be any accountability? You know, I'm sick of this. And I tell him, I go, I'm not gonna tell you that anyone's gonna end up in an orange jumpsuit. I'm a glass half full kind of girl. I truly am. But at a certain point, your girl has learned her lesson that kind of level of accountability is probably not in our future. But here's what I will tell you. You can make all of these people do exactly what Trump had to do. Go to court, make your case, lawyer up, as James Clapper put it, spend your money. Maybe you sweat a little bit. Maybe you have years-long investigations into what you did wrong. Because you all made up plenty of stuff about Trump, and he had to defend himself all over this country while he was simultaneously running for president. So if that's the only justice we get, is that Clapper and Brennan have to take a break from their daily TV hits with Nicole Wallace in order to go to court and meet with their lawyers, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. That's something I can get on board with. The number is 866-957-2874. This is Stacy on the right. I'm Grace Curley filling in, and we'll be right back.
News Daily with your host, Mike Slater.
We've been asking the question in our culture, what is a woman? Well, now the question is, what is an American? Let's talk about why this question matters. Come on.
News Daily, weekdays at 6 a.m. Eastern on Sirius XM Patriot 125.
Hey, I'm Linda, a business owner like you. My banking is all about my financial freedom. I don't want liens on all my assets when getting the business loans I need. Plus, I want to be treated like a professional, not a potential criminal. My business coach recommended Delta Capital Group. I went to deltacap.com and got the money I needed. A $200K line of credit in under 24 hours. No collateral. It was a breath of fresh air.
Delta Capital Group is the national leader providing lines of credit and term loans for businesses just like yours. Same-day approval, no collateral, any credit score. Rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau. Over half of their business comes from referrals and happy repeat customers. Why? Delta Capital gets business done. Smart business owners don't wait for money.
I got my financial freedom through Delta.
Delta Capital, lightning fast. Your bank, stuck in the past. Get your money at deltacap.com. That's deltacap.com. Delta Capital Group, funding your future fast.
It's an interesting time for business. Tariff and trade policies are dynamic, supply chains squeezed, and cash flow tighter than ever.
If you're big,
to real-time cash flow. That's NetSuite by Oracle, your AI-powered business management suite trusted by over 42,000 businesses. Stay strategic. NetSuite helps you know what's stuck, what it's costing you, and how to pivot fast. It's one system, full control. Tame the chaos with NetSuite. If your revenues are at least in the seven figures, download the free ebook, Navigating Global Trade, 3 Insights for Leaders at netsuite.com/nation. That's netsuite.com/nation.
I had the worst dream last night. You were in a car crash, and the kids and I were on our own. We had to move out of the house because I couldn't afford it anymore.
That's awful, huh?
My brother got life insurance from Ethos, and it only took 10 minutes. And he got $2 million in coverage for around $2 a day. It's all online. No medical exam. He just answered a few health questions right from his house.
Ethos, here we come. Visit ethos.com/save. Ethos.com/save.
Celebrate is a 10-year term life policy for 35-year-old healthy, non-smoking male. Billed monthly.
Moral order, school choice.
We are
Sirius XM Patriot.
Channel 125.
Conservative principles live here.
Missed any of the show? You can catch up on the Sirius XM app. This is Stacy on the right on Sirius XM Patriot 125.
Welcome back, everyone, to Stacy on the Right here at Sirius XM Patriot. It has been an absolute joy to fill in for Stacy, and I've got good news for you guys. I don't know, it depends on how you all think this went. If you think it was great, then it's good news. If you hated all 3 hours, then you're not going to like what I'm about to say next. But I will be here Thursday and Friday night. So we're going to have 2 more nights of a lot of fun with each other. And I did want to give you an update on the Texas House Democrats because they've been kind of eclipsed at this point. The DC crime crackdown by Trump has overshadowed all of these social media starlets who tried to make a name for themselves by packing up their knapsacks and running away. I'm running away. Did you ever try to run away as a kid, Chris? Do you ever make a stink like that? You know, you get the bag on the stick.
Several times.
Really? I was never a runaway kind of girl, but I would see it in the movies. And I would think, that wouldn't last long for me. I have a lot of things I need, you know. I get thirsty very quickly, need a bathroom. I don't like when people are mad at me, so I probably want to come back and just double check. Is everything cool now? But I know that this is what the Texas Democrats wanted. They wanted they wanted the parents to call or go out looking for them and say, come back, come back. We missed you. The house is falling apart without you. And so they left and they went to Chicago. And they went to a state, Illinois, that is the most gerrymandered in the nation. It gets an F from all these bipartisan commissions Democrats claim get them out of the danger zone for their own gerrymandering. They get an F from those commissions. That's how bad Illinois is. So all these Democrats get on private planes, you know, like Bernie Sanders said, what do you think? I'm going to stand in line on United and wait for, well, it doesn't make any sense. That's not the way I have to travel. So they all get on their planes and they go to Illinois and they are welcomed with open arms by J.B. Pritzker, who's using this opportunity as some sort of stepping stone to run for president. It's not going that well. I would give him like a D as far as his media tour over the last 2 weeks. But now they've sent in a list of demands. It's reminding me of when the college campus students, the anti-Semites like at Columbia and Harvard that were sitting on the sprinklers with the buckets and locking janitors in closets, when they sent their demands in and they said, like, we need dental dams, we need sunscreen, we need nutritious bars, breakfast bars. They were writing all these demands and everyone was like, okay, you're not really in a position to make demands. We're trying to get you out of here. We're not trying to help you stay longer. So this is the letter that Texas Democrats wrote from Chicago. I'm just gonna skip around here because they talk about how Greg Abbott announced that he will capitulate to Democratic demands to end their corrupt special session on Friday, but promised to call another. Texas House Democrat Caucus Chair Rep. Jean Wu issued the following statement. Okay. What happens next is entirely up to Greg Abbott. This sounds like something, Chris, you'd be the expert on this, I think. But this is like a villain in a Batman movie or something. What happens next is entirely up to Greg Abbott. After deliberation among our caucus, we have reached a consensus. Texas House Democrats refuse to give him a quorum to pass his racist maps that silence more than 2 million Black and Latino Texans. In keeping with our original promise to Texans, the first called special session will never make quorum again, defeating Abbott's first attempt at passing his racial gerrymander. Oh gosh, where are the demands though? They say this is a list of demands, but I'm not seeing anything. It just seems like a lot of virtue signaling and complaining about Trump and I'm sorry, and threats. I should mention threats. It says Texas House Democrats will issue our demands for a second special session on Friday. Oh, so this is just a tease? Oh man. This is a letter to tease the letter that's going to have the demands in it. No, you're milking it. You guys are really milking this. You're taking it a little far. Abbott can choose to govern for Texas families, or he can keep serving Trump and face the consequences we've unleashed nationwide. What are the consequences they've unleashed nationwide? Is it their record low approval number? That's like negative 32. Is that the consequences that Greg Abbott is dealing with? You know who had a really good point on this was Kimberly Strassel from the Wall Street Journal. She wrote about how, once again, like if Democrats hadn't made such a big deal out of this, it could have backfired on Republicans. That Abbott's, trying to redraw these maps at the encouragement of Donald Trump. It could have been bad for Republicans. But what do Democrats always do? Sure as God made green apples, they overplay their hand. They don't know how to do anything else. They see an opportunity and they're like, oh, I'm going to make the most of this. And then they go so far off the reservation that they end up moving people in the opposite direction. So that's what they did in the case of the gerrymandering. They couldn't just say, this is bad, this is why, go on TV, talk about it. They had to get on planes and leave and go to Illinois, which is really the height of hypocrisy. And then they had to send out like Governor Maura Healey, my governor here in Massachusetts, unfortunately, to say that she's considering redrawing the maps here in order to fight fire with fire. Guess how much representation Republicans have in Massachusetts? I don't know how she's going to redraw 9-0 maps. It doesn't make any sense. And then you have all these governors who really have gerrymandered their states to the limit, who have nowhere to go. You can only redistrict so much. You can only redraw these maps to such a point where you have nothing else to gain. You've tapped that well. You've run that well dry. And so now they're doing that. And so the Republicans are going, okay, cool. So this is just going to be what we're going to do now. We're going to redraw them. Great. You're on board. You're going to fight fire with fire. And we're going to redraw. The only issue for Democrats is when we redraw, we have a lot to gain because there's been a lot of unfair and inaccurate gerrymandering going on. And so if we redraw these maps, it's going to look good for Republicans. It's not going to be good for Democrats. If Trump does do a census, and we start to get a better sense of who's in this country now that we've had mass deportations and an end to illegal immigration, it's not going to be good for Democrats. But keep making your demands. Keep making your Instagram videos. Keep it up. I'm loving every minute of it. We have that going on. We have the DC crackdown going on. We have the declassified documents from Tulsi Gabbard, which are amazing and show that James Clapper was on board with this Russia hoax from day one. And in fact, he wasn't just on board with it. He was making sure everyone else, anyone with integrity, anyone who was actually good at their jobs, anyone with an eye for accuracy, that they were silenced and they were pushed aside in order to propagate the Russia hoax that ended up haunting Trump for most of his first administration. He was able to still accomplish quite a bit in spite of all of that, but it doesn't make it right. And there's been no apologies. There will be no apologies. But now I'm less worried about apologies. Now I'm more concerned with accountability. You don't have to say you're sorry, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be held accountable for all your mistakes. This has been a delight, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow at Stacy on the Right. I'm not Stacy on the Right. This is Grace Curley, but I have had a great time filling in, and I look forward to doing it all again on Thursday night. We'll see you then.
My name is Preston James. I've been a stock and options trader for 23
Right
years.
back.
I used to be an active swing trader, but that all changed once I discovered my Money Press weekly paycheck method. These days, I'm a passive trader hauling in more cash while being able to sleep at night than I ever dreamed possible. I'm passionate about the market and I like to keep it simple. My methods are changing thousands of lives and I'm confident it can change yours. But let the proof do the talking. By going to accountproof.com, that's accountproof.com, you'll see a 7-minute video revealing how my Money Press method grew a $54,000 account to $174,000 in less than 9 months. That works out to 5.8% per week. You'll see the proof right inside my real brokerage account. This isn't about overnight riches, but once you discover this for yourself, you can start on this same path overnight. You're 7 minutes away from changing everything you thought you knew about trading and investing. Go to accountproof.com to get started. That's accountproof.com.
When you're a business owner, every second of your time is incredibly valuable. So don't waste your energy and risk losing money dealing with time-sucking payroll issues, office politics, and HR infractions. Focus on what matters most, running your business with help from Bambee. Bambi gives you access to your very own dedicated HR manager at a fraction of what it costs to employ someone full-time. Bambi costs just $29 a month, whether you have 10, 75, or even 100 employees. Forget about onboarding new employees and terminating underperforming ones. With Bambi, your dedicated HR team will handle all of that for you. Your dedicated HR manager is always available by phone, text, or online. No downtime, no excuses, no BS, just dedicated HR support whenever you need it. Right now, get 1 month of Bambi for just $1. Go to Bambi.com, type Stacy under radio to schedule your first call with an HR manager right now. That's 1 month of Bambi for just $1 at BAMBEE.com, Stacy Radio.
Freedom of speech. The Second Amendment.
We are
Sirius XM Patriot.
Channel 125.
Conservative principles live here.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Jason Blocker. Ironic twist. President Trump is set to discuss the war in Ukraine with Russian leader Vladimir Putin at the very same military base in Alaska that was crucial to countering the Soviet Union during the Cold War. Meeting Friday will be at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson in Anchorage. Defense expert Benjamin Jensen at the Center for Strategic and International Studies says having the Trump-Putin meeting on a military base, that's a good call.
As weird as it seems to have the Russian president meet the U.S. president on a major military base in Alaska, it makes sense for both sides. The last thing Putin and his propaganda, corrupt inner circle want is pictures of Americans protesting Putin being there at a public setting. And if you had it in a more traditional setting, people could get close. No one's getting into the military base who doesn't have an ID and isn't supposed to be there. And frankly, that means they can really contain the space.
A judge striking down President Trump's religious exemption to birth control coverage.
During his first term, the president put in place rules that exempt employers with religious or moral objections from having to provide workers with insurance coverage for birth control. But a federal judge in Philadelphia said the 2018 rules were not justified, rejecting the Trump administration's claims that they were necessary to protect the rights of religious employers. Little Sisters of the Poor, a Roman Catholic order of nuns that intervened in the case to defend the rules, will appeal the ruling. Greg Clugston, Washington.
First day of school in Texas marred by a bus accident in the town of Leander. At least 12 students have been injured, 3 of them critically. Buses in that school district must have seat belts. The kids have to wear them. 9 people pleading not guilty to felony charges brought by Republican Attorney General Ken Paxton in Texas. More on these stories, townhall.com.
If you're living with pain, see how Relief Factor can help.
My back got injured very bad. I was off work for about a year. I heard about Relief Factor from my wife. I took it every day, 3 times a day for 3 weeks. I looked at her and I said, the pain is gone. And she said, I'm glad it helped. I said, no, you don't understand. It's gone.
Fight pain naturally with Relief Factor. Go to ReliefFactor.com and get your 3-week quick start today. Only $19.95.
With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, you get coverage options based on how much you want to pay for car insurance. And you decide how to spend the rest of your money, because you're in charge. And right now, you're going to pay for groceries. But you decide what groceries. Just keep in mind you're running out of dishwashing soap. But you decide if you're going to buy that soap. Just those dishes won't clean themselves, will they? Remember, with Progressive's Name Your Price tool, we'll help you find coverage at a fair price. Then, you're in charge. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates are available in all states. License coverage varies limited by state law.
Cyber threat allegations connected to the family of a murdered CEO.
A New York man is charged with cyber stalking a family member of the killed CEO of United Healthcare. Shane Daly is accused of calling a member of Brian Thompson's family multiple times, justifying his death and saying the person he contacted deserved to die in the same way. Late last year, Thompson was shot and killed in Midtown Manhattan by a man prosecutors said was angered over what he viewed as corporate greed. The suspect pleaded not guilty. The U.S. Attorney's Office has daily gleefully welcomed this tragedy. I'm Ed Donahue.
Harvard and the Trump administration getting close to an agreement that would require the Ivy League school to pay $500 million to regain access to federal funding and to end investigations. Framework for a settlement is still being sorted out with a number of significant gaps to close. Breaking news and analysis, townhall.com.
We, the people of the United States.
This week in American history.
In 1863, Frederick Douglass meets with President Lincoln at the White House to advocate for equal pay for black Union soldiers.
And in 1945, Japan agrees to surrender, bringing World War II to a close.
Counting down to America. 250.
Only on Sirius XM Patriot Channel 125.
Grown-ups, don't go back to school. Go forward through school into your future as an IT professional. Whether you're starting out, switching careers, or a veteran ready for change, My Computer Career can help you get into IT in just a few short months with no prior experience. So take the free career evaluation now at mycomputercareer.edu. Your rewarding career in IT awaits. That's mycomputercareer.edu, an elite CompTIA certification partner. Financial aid is available to those who qualify, including the VA benefits.
Did you know that your largest investment asset might not be your retirement account or home? I'm Jay Jackson, CEO of Abacus Life. Most people don't realize that their life insurance policy is actually an asset they can sell. But for almost 20 years, Abacus has been purchasing life insurance policies from seniors just like you. We've even created a free policy value calculator at abacuspays.com so you can find out in seconds what we might pay for your policy. There are no fees and no obligations, just information. Knowing the value of your life insurance policy is as important as knowing the value of your home, your equity portfolio, or your finances in total. Discover the valuable information you need to understand the current market value for your life insurance, and then get real value from your life insurance when you need it with Abacus. Visit abacuspays.com to learn more and use our free policy value calculator today.
He's here. Now broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Brian Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811.
Got me some brats.
Well, we've never done this before. It is Governor's Night, Governor's Evening on the Mark Levin Show.
We're not doing
This
this.
turned out that way. We had 3 governors contacting us.
We're not doing this again.
We will have Governor Ron DeSantis on at 8:30 with his new Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins. That'll be fun. Going to talk about redistricting and among other things. In hour 2 at 7:20, we're going to have the governor of Texas, Governor Greg Abbott, on the program. I don't believe he's ever been. Well, maybe once before, years ago. Also a great governor. We're going to talk to him. By the way, the dork and the failure and the loser who is the governor of California destroyed the greatest state in the country, and it was. Simply was. That's the way it is. This guy, well, okay, I warned them, and now I'm going to change all the districts in California. The guy wants to be president in the worst way, and we will do everything we can to stop him, and we will expose him. In every respect, this guy is a horrible, not just governor, but person. I can't wait. It's not really very good news.
This does not, however, justify President Trump's harebrained scheme, her words, to deploy the National Guard to patrol the streets, an idea that marries sinister overtones with very limited effectiveness, nor is the problem likely to be solved by federalizing the D.C. law enforcement and prosecutions, as he suggested at a Monday news conference. So who is in charge of the D.C. Metropolitan Police? Well, the police chief says, I am. What's your role in all this? I am the chief of police for the Metropolitan Police Department. And being the chief of police, I am certainly the one who champions to ensure that we reduce violent crime across our city. That is why the mayor appointed me to do that job, which is why you've seen the reduction in crime across our city. This effort will only...
We haven't seen that, so that's why they're doing that.
And crime is down about 25%, a 30-year low. That is Pamela Smith, the chief of the Metropolitan D.C. Police Department. More from Megan McArdle today in the Washington Post. Quote, those who are opposed to Trump's recent moves should argue not that they constitute fascism, but that they are not a real solution. The department needs more money to hire more officers, better training management, and advancement of opportunities for those officers, and the assurance that the people they catch will be prosecuted. And the D.C. Department of Corrections needs to pioneer new approaches that Republicans and...
Tell the truth. If you're going to say something, do exactly what you're going to say. Don't lie. Don't manipulate the people.
Now Brian works to educate the people, handing out red cards that detail rights for immigrants. And
failing crime-ridden schools, we oppose school choice. But Free DC, a fiscally sponsored special project of progressive nonprofits, Community Change and Community Change Action, brought 150 demonstrators near the White House Monday to protest Trump's plan to deploy National Guard troops in the district in federal law.
Can you clean me up? Girl, I'm the worst. Yeah, I'm the worst.
You know, they'll never get lost, Mr. Producer. They just march up and down the streets. Have you noticed that? Or they march in a circle. Do not obey in advance and take up space are among Free DC's guiding principles. The group urges supporters to go outside at 8 p.m. and bang pots and pans, sing, chant, make noise for 5 minutes every night of this occupation. Way to do the same thing to the Soroses. Alex and Daddy George. And of course, Alex married, what's her name? What is her name? I don't even remember. Hillary Clinton's lapdog. Free DC has scheduled multiple events since Monday anti-Trump protests, including a cop watch training, quote unquote, suggesting further protests are planned amid Trump's effort to make DC the safest, cleanest, most beautiful city anywhere in the world. Uma Abedin. Oh, she knows how to pick him, doesn't she? Huh? That's right, Wiener's ex-wife. Everybody knows Wiener. Everybody knows it. Remember, he took a photo of it, distributed. He's not the only one, by the way. I'm thinking about mentioning it about another guy, but right now I'm going to keep my mouth shut, Mr. Producer. But it's getting close. It's getting close. Community Change and Community Change Action, the groups bankrolling Free DC's activism campaign, have been the beneficiaries of millions of dollars in donations from hedge fund tycoon George Soros, Open Society Foundation, and Tides Foundation. How does he get away with this? Yeah, I asked the Republicans on Capitol Hill, are you going to scrutinize this guy ever? They go after Trump's tax returns. They go after everything. They went after Elon Musk. What about this? Seriously, this guy's spending billions to destroy our country and destroy our allies, for that matter. In the Dark Money Arabella Advisors Network. Now, dark money means we don't know where their money's coming from. Why not? Why not? It's ironic. Yeah, the billionaires. That jackass, Bernie Sanders, the Stalinist, and Mandami, the Ugandan, trust fund baby, Islamist, Marxist, Jew hater. Oh, look at this. You might get elected mayor. It's ironic that a protest to ostensibly Free DC was hosted by Community Change, a group funded by massive amounts of outside dark money, push a pro-crime agenda, said Caitlin Sutherland, executive director of the nonprofit watchdog Americans for Public Trust. And Caitlin is right. Now, this is why lowlifes like Bernie Sanders won't come on this show. I would pin this guy's shoulders to the wall. You wouldn't know what the hell he's doing.
This Dana Bash, this freak fraud and phony. I mean, he runs circles around her. He runs circles around all of them. Then he gives you this communist old man crap. Hey, don't tell me. Shut up, old man. Sit down. I'm talking to you. I'm educating you, you jerk. You supported every communist dictator on the globe, and you backed off, but you always supported him, didn't you? In 2023 alone, Community Change and Community Change Action received $4 million from Soros Open Society Foundation, $680 from Arabella, dark money, $145,000 Tides Foundation, dark money. Americans for Public Trust Fund and publicly available financial disclosures. Now, this Arabella Advisors, these are real low lives. A Washington-based Joe Rogan podcast, check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Right now,